Check one, 2, 3. Hey everybody, it's Michael Helms, also known as Michael the Sound Guy, and this is the Location Sound Podcast. You know, each episode we talk with location sound mixers, boom ops, and other industry pros about the various aspects of recording sound on location, whether it's for feature and independent films, TV commercials, interviews, any time where dialogue from actors is recorded. I started my career in the recording studios in New York City with some of the big artists back in the day, and later on projects for networks like HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, and the Cartoon Network. As time went by, I got out of the studio and began working in production sound. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, thanks for joining us. Okay, our guest today is a production sound mixer based out of Los Angeles, California. Please welcome Jed Shiheng Xu.
Hello. Good to be here.
We have been talking with all of our guests about what happened to them during COVID-19 when everything kind of shut down and everybody had to quarantine or shelter in place. So kind of tell us what your experience was when everything happened.
I remember it pretty clear because I'm on staff with this media company called Fuse, and then we do a lot of internet content, and then we're supposed to do the shoot, and then it got canceled because of the lockdown. And then I feel like everybody's kind of like on panic mode where I was just frantically looking for gigs while all the stuff is like shut down. But thankfully, I do post-production as well, so I managed to keep myself fairly busy for like the first month of the quarantine. And then everything started to die down again. And then I was kind of in the limbo for a little bit. It was cool, you know, taking some time off because I was working pretty busy, but yeah.
Okay. Now, where are you from originally?
So I'm originally from Shenzhen, China, which is the Silicon Valley of China. It's like where the big tech companies are, like Tencent, Huawei, and then like DJI, who makes all the drone stuff. Got a pretty good education, as you can tell from my English, I guess, because people always say, oh, you speak fluent English. And I was like, yeah, I got pretty decent educations, and then I'm here in the U.S. for college, and now I'm on a work visa.
Now, have you done any production in China?
No, I have not. I only started here in U.S., and I've heard crazy things about productions in China. And then I'd rather not work in China, to be honest, because it sounds pretty crazy to me.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your gear. So kind of when you're working on set as a production sound mixer or a boom op, kind of give us a rundown of what's in your audio kit.
Yeah, so I kind of built from the ground up. In college, I had a Zoom F8n, which I still have now. I gradually bought a 416 and then moved from Sennheiser G3s into two Lectrosonics SRcs with SMQVs. And then I have the A10 system for the wireless boom, and then I have the CMIT and the MKH-50. I use MKE-1 and the 6060 for my labs. So pretty good stuff.
Okay. What kind of timecode boxes do you like?
I just use the Tentacle ones, and they've been pretty sturdy. They take up quite a beating, and they still work.
And how do you kind of power your whole bag?
Oh, I got these. They're Inspire Energy eSmart batteries.
Okay, and they've been working pretty good?
Yeah, because I was using a V-mount actually before I moved into electro stuff, just powering my FAN, and then that was pretty heavy, just a big V-mount. So I was like, I gotta get something better.
What kind of bag do you put everything in?
I had the K-Tech Junior. It's like the older version, and it works pretty good. It's heavy though, so I tend to just put everything on my little Zuka cart, and I've been not wanting to like wear it, to be honest.
All right, tell us about the Zuka cart. So did you get it modified, or did you modify it yourself?
I just bought it, and then I was putting like shelves on it. I had to spray paint it, so the color would match. So it was not just like, because I bought these like baking trays to make sure like the bag doesn't fall off from the top. And then I drilled in like the boom pole holders, and then I put on some clamp-on shelves. It's been working pretty good. Like people love it.
Cool. All right, well, let's talk about some of the projects you've worked on. One of them I saw, ASMR with Black China. So first, before you tell us, like, some of our listeners probably know, but kind of give us an overview of what ASMR is.
It's a way to stimulate your brain into a mental climax, I guess. That's my take on it.
Tell us about that experience with Black China.
Yeah, she's interesting. Actually, that was the last shoot that I did before everything shut down. But yeah, that show was weird because Fuse originally had this like really crappy blue mic, and then for the ASMR, and then they didn't have a windscreen, and then the sound quality was just terrible, and then it was not ASMR because ASMR is supposed to be pristine. And then I pitched them, oh, we should totally get two like 416 to make it like a cool stereo recording. And they were like, yeah, maybe we'll try it. I feel like the producer didn't really know that much about audio, and then it sounded great. Like the Black China was like interacting with the mic, and then it sounded great. Lots of small movements. She was also pretty good because a lot of guests, I do a lot of these ASMR shoots, and then the guests will just start to slam stuff, and I was like, oh, this is not how you do ASMR. And she was delicate, so yeah, that was cool.
Now, was she just talking, or was she eating, or what was going on?
So what they do is like they interview her about her life, her work, all the guests' work and life, and then they will give her these objects or stuff to interact with. So yeah.
Just the 416s, or were you using any other mics?
Yeah, so I just had the two 416s, and then, oh, you know what? I was wrong. That was the shoot after COVID. Sorry, my bad. That was the shoot after COVID. And then it was pretty strict because we had to just set up the mic, and then I couldn't even be in the room. So I was running a really long XLR into like the office. So yeah, nothing else.
Yeah, I was talking to some guys today that were on a commercial, and they set everything up, and then a representative from the talent came out and checked everybody's temperature. And then everybody was good, so then the host and hostess could come out. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I am all about safety, to be honest, because no one wants their life to be wrecked by this terrible virus, right? I mean, you'll be out of work or even in ICU beds. So I'm all about safety.
Excellent. Also for Fuse, you worked on lie detector test?
Yeah, so the lie detector guys actually tell me like to have a really accurate test, you have to be really still, and then they have to condition you, like get you a benchmark by asking all these questions. A lot of people actually do these lie detector videos, and then they're like fidgeting, and then they're like moving a lot, and then all the guests go on there, think the lie detector is real, and then they answer pretty truthfully, which is pretty funny. And then the one that I was on was actually Sir Generous, I think that's how I pronounce his name. He was interviewed by his girlfriend, and then that was getting a lot of views online, and it was actually a pretty funny shoot. He was like super young. I think he was like underage, like 15, 16. So yeah, that was an interesting experience.
All right. Let's see. You also worked on House Beautiful and did a shoot with Bobby Burke. So tell us about that.
Yeah, that was cool. That was my DP friend, Jake Mitchell, who actually a lot of DP calls me on these shoots. So big shout out to my DP friends. It was like a quick video for House Beautiful. It was just Bobby Burke, because he's like an interior designer. And we were just filming him talking about his office space, like how his design is integrated even in his own life. And yeah, he's got a really nice place. And then he's actually one of the nicest celebrity I've worked with, to be honest. So yeah, that was cool.
Now, did you wire him or boom him or both?
Yeah, I wired him with my 6060 with my SMQVs, and then I was booming with my, I think that was when I had the Schoeps MKH-50. That was before COVID, though. I think that was like the start of this year. Yeah.
Let's see here. You also worked on a feature called Anchorage.
Yeah, so I'm actually a big fan of these independent features where it's just bare bone crew, where everybody gets to know each other really well. And Anchorage is basically this story about these two brothers who looted drugs off of people in Florida, and then they decided to drive to Anchorage, Alaska to sell it with a high price. And then like a series of events happened during this road trip. Basically, it's like a road trip movie. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, it was a cool experience. I get to experience the true Wild West, I guess. It was just bare land. It was winter. It was in February, and it was cold, and everybody's like huddling together. And we were shooting in like these abandoned places because they're supposed to be these two hobos who just drift around in the U.S. Yeah, that was cool. That was cool. I love collaborating with like independent spirits much more than like stuff like commercials or stuff like that.
All right. Now, do you remember what was the miking setup on that?
Yeah, that was interesting because there were actually a lot of driving shots. So I had we had a follow car, and then I was using my diversity fin to pick up, SMQVs in the car, and then my A10. And that worked pretty good. I had the extended antenna where you could connect via SMA to have the antenna outside of the car. Yeah, I don't know what that's called, but that worked pretty good. I was kind of scared with that for a little bit.
Afraid it would blow off or something?
No, I did some tests. It was working good, but I'm just afraid that it's gonna act up on the day, or like the actor is gonna open the door and then stuff get like pulled off. But yeah, that worked out pretty good.
What was the distance? How far could you get back and still have a good signal?
We were pretty close for the most part. I wasn't gonna risk it. We were like tightly. The follow car was like following pretty closely, so we didn't go that far.
All right. Now I saw that you also work as a dialogue editor. You know, you get this production audio. You know, what are some of the issues you're having to deal with?
Yeah, I am a post-production dialogue editor. Dialogue editor basically takes all the tracks, dialogue tracks from the editor, and I organize it in a manner where it's easy for the mixer to mix the dialogue, because, you know, there will be always room tone difference between different mics, and then the mic angle will be different, and then it will sound different. So I have to organize in a way that is easier for the re-recording mixer to mix it. And the most common problem I think I run into is laugh problems, I think. Because I think it's very important to get a good laugh recording, because a lot of times I often find booms are like always a little bit too far away, unless it's like in a coverage shot. So I run into problems where it's mostly cloth rustling. It's like a bad material like nylon or stuff that's like scratchy, or maybe sometimes the laugh is too buried underneath a shirt, and then it just sounds very like muffled, or it's very throaty when it's like around the collar of the t-shirt.
All right. Some of the things that you've experienced, you know, as a dialogue editor, but then now you're out in the field recording location sound. So what are some things that you try to do to get good production sound that maybe you were influenced by being a dialogue editor?
You know, I thought about this question a lot, and I think it's actually a disadvantage for me to be a dialogue editor, to record on set sound, because I always think, oh, I could fix it. Oh, I could fix that. I could do this and could do that. But in reality is like a lot of these shows don't have the budget to hire like a proper dialogue editor, because I feel like post sound is really lesser known, because just the fact that sometimes I show people I can do these things with this tool I call Isotope RX, and they'll be shell shocked. They'll be like, wow, that's crazy. So yeah, I would say it's actually a disservice to me. But I think I learned that it's very important to, no matter what, get a good laugh track, even though the boom is not usable sometimes. So I always try to make sure the laugh sound perfect. Like if I didn't wire up a talent perfectly, like if I'm getting rustle or am I getting plosive, like I have to make sure that it works. Otherwise, it's gonna come back and bite me, like once they take this into post-production. Because rustling and plosive are the two things that you can't really fix with any sound files. That would just mess up the quality too much.
So if you could tell these production sound mixers out here one thing to do better, what would you say?
So I would say definitely get a good, clean sounding laugh track, because that is the last line of defense. Because oftentimes I would see, if I can't fix a poorly recorded laugh track, we'll have to go into ADR. And a lot of times, if the laugh is not rustly or there's no plosive, I can always manage to bring it back to avoid the deadly cost of ADR, especially in these days where like ADR is such a difficult thing to do and it's such an expensive thing to do. So yeah, definitely get a clean, good laugh track. And I know it's hard because these days with COVID and everything, it's tough to even wanting to put a laugh on people. But yeah, or even coordinate with the production to see if boom is the best choice, because that's always a tough battle to battle these days.
Yeah, I've been on some where people just said, we just want a boom. We don't want to laugh anybody, so.
Yeah, I've been doing mostly boom stuff, and it's been good. I see the end product, and I'm like, oh, okay, they fixed it up pretty good. I think it's just easy for everybody, whereas like there's no inherent risk to this whole thing. So yeah, it's a great way to negotiate with DPs. You know, so how can I get in? How can I make this work? So yeah, it's an interesting challenge. It's a new way of shooting everything.
What's been your favorite project that you've worked on so far?
Yeah, so recently I've had the honor to shoot with Goldman Sachs. Basically, we interviewed these two really big, like the founder of these two really big companies. And then I've always been very into like the business side of things, because eventually I want to, have my post-sound studio or my rental house. So it's always interesting to hear entrepreneur stories. So basically we were interviewing these two entrepreneurs, and then I really love my production sound job because I always get to know interesting stories about very different people. So I was learning a lot from these two entrepreneurs and how they progressed from starting with nothing into something of a really big empire of like a big office in Culver City. So I love jobs where you can learn a different side of life other than yours.
That's good. What's been your worst on-set experience?
This is actually early in my career, and then this was a shoot actually for a pretty big client, and then we were interviewing actually pretty big stars. So we had Killer Mike, he's like this big rapper, and then we had Patton Oswalt, and then Whitney Cummings. So basically they're a kind of comedian of some sort, and then Killer Mike comes in, and then I like extended my arms, and then my brain froze, and I was like, do you go by the name Killer? So and he's like, yeah, no man, I just Mike. I was like, oh, okay, sorry. And then I had to like put laugh on him, and then it was just like awkward silence in the whole room, and then I just feel so bad. And then the worst part was that a lot of the laugh actually didn't sound that great on that day of recording, and then that goes back to my point where it's important to get a good laugh, because the boom also wasn't sounding good because it was in like a very echoey room. And then when I tried to take it in post and fix it myself, and I was like, oh man, I really should have like stopped the shoot and tried to actually even like just bring the mic out and clip it on their shirt than to, just risk of losing the recording. So yeah, that was pretty traumatic. And then that producer never called me again.
Have you had any mentors that kind of helped you out?
For production-wise, not that much. I bought so all my gear are used. So I actually made a lot of good mixer friends just by buying gear, like Curtis, like I mentioned to you. And then, yeah, not that much. I mostly had to figure out on my own, like by making mistakes, because I was doing a lot of short films where I would do post-production as well. So I kind of had to figure out the hard way by fixing my own mistakes that I made during production in post. That was a good learning experience. But I wish someone, who would just a big mixer and then bring me on as boom mob or utility. A lot of my friends did that, but I guess not for me.
Okay. So what would you tell some new sound people just starting off in their careers? What kind of advice would you give them?
Definitely buy used gear, like I said, because I bought my used gears, and then they eventually led to really great friendships with a lot of mixers who will actually someday wreck you for a gig or, call you on for boom mob. And then it's also a great way to save money, because I definitely made the mistake of buying first-hand stuff well, I could have totally gotten a way better deal like secondhand. And then audio kits last for days anyways, so secondhand is always a good choice. So another piece of advice is to make really great friends with DPs and producers. So producers and DPs mostly get my jobs. Actually, much more than recommendation from other mixers, because if a DP finds you very chill, like you're not messing up their shots, and your boom's not in, like the shadow's not in, then they will more than happy to bring you on the gig. So definitely make sure the producer is happy, and be great friends with your DP. Oh, and actually another advice, be a really chill dude that they can see themselves hanging out with. Because I feel like a lot of times it's not about how good your gear is, when it's a lot about like if you can get down to the earth and just connect with people on set and just hang out.
But don't ruin the sound.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely make sure your stuff is secured and your stuff is good, and then be a chill guy, because you don't want to be that creepy sound dude. Actually, something I wish I've learned earlier is how to solder, because I've actually made money out of building custom cable for people, for like low profile or like just simple XLR. And it's also a great way, just to learn about signal flow. And the more you know about what you're doing, and the better you know your gear, is going to be very beneficial for you when stuff goes wrong. And that's when your knowledge comes in. And in the meantime, you save ton of money from buying like all these expensive cables, when you can just, build your own or repair like a broken one.
All right. Well, hey, if people wanted to reach out, or what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so I'm on all social media platforms. My website is jzoo.info, jzoo.info. And then my Instagram is live_Jetty. So please definitely feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about post-production and then location sound recording. I'm very much happy to talk about, because I always look for people to nerd out on sound, because it's fun. It's fun to nerd out.
It is, and that's what we do here.
Exactly.
All right, I want to say thanks to Jed Shiheng Xu for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael. It's been a great time.
And I'd like to say thanks to everyone for listening. If you have questions or would like us to discuss a particular topic, email us at locationsoundpodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. We're available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, remember, sound is half the picture.